The owner of this truck had it in because it had started to run strange after one of their friends had tried to squeeze an extra few horses out of the engine with his unique tuning method. The customer ended up declining all repairs because he thought it was too expensive and said that he will just drive it as is until it gives up. The owner of this car had gone drifting with their car on a frozen lake and had been revving it in second gear for a bit longer than what they should have. Customerstates just had another shop replace the driver's side airbag after recent collision, but the wiring job was done so poorly that it resulted in a cable fire. This customer came in with their Toyota Starlet saying it had started handling like a drunk monkey trying to get up a tree. Customer states that he has problems starting his car after his friend had tried fixing an engine sound by tapping gently on the engine with a hammer. And this car rolled in because the owner said that the brake pedal had started to feel mushy lately, even though they just had it in for some new brake pads at a different shop the week before. This car rolled in with a total transmission after the owner had accidentally forced it into reverse while trying to shift into 6th gear while driving on the highway. The owner of this car came in saying that they had trouble starting their truck one day, but that their neighbor, who knew a thing or two about electronics, had helped them fix it. But that they now had a strange burnt smell in the cab anytime the truck ran more than 5 minutes. And this car rolled in on a tow truck as it wouldn't start because it had a massive oil leak after the owner had hit a larger bollard as he had wanted to brake but had accidentally floored the gas pedal instead. This car came in looking like this after the customer had tried avoiding hitting a squirrel on the road but instead hit a speed bump going over 60 miles an hour. This Audi Q7 rolled in because the owner said it had started to accelerate really badly, ever since a friend of theirs had helped them with the yearly service in exchange for a bottle of whiskey. Customer states, car feels jerky, but only when braking. Please advise. Customer states, starting issues and does not think it's the spark plugs, since they were apparently replaced just 4 months ago. This Honda CR-V was in for a post-purchase inspection after the customer had bought it for $2,500 from a guy on Craigslist. Well, there's your problem, sir. And the owner of this SUV came in saying that it starts okay but dies after a few miles of driving, and that she began having lots of issues with the car since her ex-husband moved out. The mechanics found one of the fuel lines like this. Customer came in complaining about his steering wheel feeling kinda strange after he had done some suspension work on it, all by himself. Customer states, car's leaking oil from somewhere, but isn't exactly sure where. The mechanics discovered that someone had removed the old valve cover gasket but not installed a new one. This customer's Toyota Tundra came in for its first oil change in 75,000 miles, and when asked why they didn't come in sooner, the customer just replied, "Because it's a Tundra, I didn't think they needed oil changes." This customer's car had some brake problems after a recent repair job by another shop. The mechanics found that the other shop had overfilled the brake fluid and also used engine oil instead of brake fluid. Customer came in saying that their steering wheel has started to feel heavier than usual the past week and wanted it looked at. This car rolled in with brake issues and terrible squeaking sounds after the customer had tried saving some money by only replacing half of the pads. And hopefully this customer has some good quality car insurance. This Ford Expedition was brought in after the customer heard a clunk sound when going to work, after just having had a new exhaust installed by another shop 3 days before. Turns out that the other shop had missed to install a few exhaust hangers. Customer states, slammed the brakes to avoid hitting a cat on the road, but ever since, the brakes have felt different. And the owner of this car came in for an oil change, and when asked about what the strange device on the back of his truck was, he said that it's a fuel flux capacitor boost generator that he apparently built himself and that improves gas mileage by making his fuel consumption travel backwards in time. The owner of this car had a long-time dream to go camping with his car, so he had equipped it with some cooking gear all by himself and wanted the mechanic to make sure the installation would pass a safety inspection. And this customer came in saying that he thinks a ghost lives inside his engine because it sounds like someone's rattling chains all the time. Turns out that he actually, technically, wasn't all that wrong. The owner of this truck had ordered a new light bar online and wanted to install it by himself, but he now had a starting issue and the light bar only works between 20 and 25 miles per hour. This car came in with a total drivetrain after the customer had gotten stuck in a mud hole and had tried to jiggle his way out by slipping the clutch while at the same time flooring it. The customer ended up getting a new driveshaft, transmission, and fuel tank installed. This car had been on a pretty muddy and bumpy road and had to come in for some suspension work. The owner of this car came in because they had a hole in their washer fluid tank that they wanted fixed, but didn't mention anything about the state of their tires. This car came in full of knock-knock jokes, and the customer said that her uncle does her oil changes for her for cheap every year. This Hyundai Sonata was brought in because of an evap leak. The mechanics discovered that there was a hole in the fuel tank after the owner had tried to run a wire through the undercarriage to connect their new light bar to the 12-volt socket inside the driver's cab. This guy had used quite a decent amount of stop leak to try and save a few bucks on replacing the cooler, but it wasn't super successful. This guy said that he thinks silicone is one of the greatest inventions of mankind. Customerstates was in an accident with his truck and his cousin, Jerry, helped him with some bodywork, but said that he ain't all that happy with it and wants us to have a look. This customer came in right on time to get some new summer tires, as these old ones would have most likely caused hydroplaning. This customer came in with their project car asking the mechanic to list the things needed to be repaired. The mechanic recommended the customer to get a new project car instead. And this car rolled in with tires and rims all beat up after the owner hadn't seen a curbside on time and had slammed into it, doing 85 miles an hour. The owner of this Mercedes G-Class came in saying they have a clattering sound that's gradually gotten worse over the past couple of weeks. Turns out that somebody that likes honey roasted nuts had moved into the car and kept a little stash inside one of the doors. This car rolled in for a new thermostat when the mechanics noticed one of the wheels looking a bit too pumped up for the job. The owner of this car came in saying, "Friend of mine said he'd easily be able to squeeze an extra 30 horsepower out of my car, so I let him tune it, but now it's even slower than before." This customer's four-wheel drive truck rolled in because the customer had some brake problems and a clunking sound coming from the front after he had removed the front drive axle by himself because he wanted to turn it into a rear-wheel drive. And this customer came in with their car looking like this after they said they heard a loud pop when driving on the freeway. This car rolled in after the owner said that smoke had started coming out the engine bay and the car started running bad before just shutting off. The mechanics found that someone had installed higher amp fuses and also tampered with the car's fuse box and ECU in order to install some auxiliary equipment and a light bar. The owner of this car came in complaining about a steering wheel vibration after her father-in-law had helped her with a seasonal tire swap. And this customer had recently been in for some repairs on the cooling system at a cheap local repair shop, but they rolled into this shop on a tow truck because the engine had overheated after the other shop had failed to tighten one of the coolant hoses properly. This customer had done some suspension work on their Infiniti, but had to come in because they said that it now handles like a cup of wet noodles on wheels. Customer states, very annoying brake noise despite recently replacing brake pads. What could be causing it? Yeah, what could be causing it? Customer states, let my stepson borrow the truck for a week, but he came back with it on a tow truck saying he's sorry. Customer rolled into the shop on a tow truck after they lost their car keys and had tried to get into the car using a pry bar instead, which caused all these marks on the A-pillar and an expensive repair bill for the customer. The owner of this car had it in because they had started hearing a hissing sound from behind the dash, and this is what the mechanics found. Thankfully, the snake was alive and well and was taken to an animal shelter where it eventually found its way back to its owner. Customer states, engine runs badly and engine temperature is higher than normal. Says that he's done all oil changes on it himself and done it every year. The owner of this BMW came in saying that their brakes only work sometimes, after they had some work done at a different shop. Turns out that the other shop had used the wrong type of pads and rotors for this specific model. The owner of this car rolled in because they had a loud whining noise from their differential after they drove through a mud puddle, and this is the amount of oil, water and dirt that came out of the differential once the mechanics opened it up. The owner of this car came in saying, "My car feels slower than normal and I keep hearing these water sounds whenever I turn." This car was in for an oil change, and when the mechanics had it on the lift, they noticed that the customer had hit something and had tried fixing the splash shield with some duct tape. The owner of this car came in with a pretty decent coolant leak after he had tried fixing it himself using some duct tape. The owner of this truck was on his way home from work when his rear wheels just locked up on him. Turned out that the differential gears were pretty much bone dry, which had caused the diff to blow up. And this guy wanted the look of cross-drilled high-friction brake rotors, but without the hefty price tag. And this Ford Escape came in with a fuel leak, after the owner had let his brother install a new fuel pump for him for cheap. Oh yeah, it's one of those new Bluetooth spark plugs, right? This car was in for its first oil change in 44,000 miles. This pickup truck rolled in because the owner wanted an alignment after he said that he, quote, hit an empty spray can that was rolling down the highway. Must have been one hell of a spray can, bud. This Mazda rolled in for an alignment when the mechanics discovered it needed a whole lot more than just that. The owner of this vehicle came in because they think their rear ball joints are bust because they hear a loud thud sound whenever they pull in and out of their driveway. This customer had done some brake work on his Tundra all by himself, but was in because his brake pedal now went to the floor. This truck rolled in because the customer thinks he needs a new radiator and cabin air filter because the heat in the driver's cab is very weak and it also smells like horseshit when he has the cabin fan on max. A few gallons of water and soap later and the problem was fixed. Customer came in complaining about a steering wheel vibration and that their brakes feel weak and wanted it fixed. Turns out that they were missing a few parts. The owner of this car came into the shop saying that his feet get wet anytime he goes to wash off the windshield or whenever the AC has been on for longer than 15 minutes. The mechanics found the AC evaporator tube to be clogged and the rear washer fluid hose had snapped in half, both of which ended up causing the leaks into the cabin. This car came in on a tow truck because it wouldn't start. I wonder why. Customer states that they need new brake pads and maybe an alignment, but only if it doesn't cost too much. The owner of this car rolled in saying, "I just replaced the brake pads last month at another shop, so how can I still have squeaky brakes?" Customer rolled in complaining about a loud noise coming from underneath their vehicle, and this is how much sludge the mechanics found inside the transfer case, which hadn't gotten new oil since it rolled out of the factory 13 years ago. And this car came in with a transmission noise right around the holiday season, and the mechanic found the transmission fluid to be all decked out and ready for Santa. And this customer rolled in with some suspension issues after the customer had recently installed new struts at his buddy's garage. I think they must have missed something. This car was in for some electrical work when the mechanics couldn't help but notice the state of the wheels and tires. And this guy was doing a tire rotation in his very own creative way, using a pickaxe. This car rolled in because the customer complained about a clunking sound after they had recently done some work at a different shop. This customer brought in their Chrysler right on time as it had just overheated due to a bad coolant hose DIY repair job. This car came in needing some suspension work after the owner had used it to go camping with his new girlfriend over the summer. This car rolled in because it had a terrible knocking sound after the owner said that his disabled son had topped up the engine oil with some Kool-Aid while he wasn't looking. This customer had purchased this truck from a neighbor and parked it on his lawn for a couple of years before deciding to start working on it, but discovered this once he had it on the lift. This Chevrolet Tahoe urgently came into the shop because it refused to start after the customer had done his own DIY repair job on the starter motor instead of just installing a new one. Customer states, need new car battery, old one doesn't want to charge anymore. Turned out to be a bust alternator. This customer had built his very own water compressor. This car came in on a tow truck after the customer said it had started to feel really sluggish one day, and then the next day, it just wouldn't start. Customer states, car won't start and wipers randomly turn themselves on, after customer had it in at a different shop for a new electric radiator fan. Customer came in saying that they hit a badger on their way to their friend's house, and ever since, their truck had started leaning heavily to the right. This car rolled into the shop with a loose transmission housing after the customer had tried servicing the transmission but couldn't get the housing back on. Customer came in complaining about a vibration when driving on the highway, and this is what the mechanics found. This car rolled in because of an exhaust leak after the customer had built his own DIY exhaust using some square tubing. The owner of this car had some transmission work done at a different shop, but has had troubles getting it into gear ever since. And this customer came in saying that his battery drains itself and that he has lots of strange electrical issues ever since he installed a new amplifier, so he uninstalled it, but the battery still doesn't hold a charge, and this is how he had left the wires. This customer had recently been to a quick lube shop for an oil change, but had to come in because they now had a slight ticking noise. This customer came in for a new radiator expansion tank after he failed to fix his old one with quite the amount of silicone. And this customer had let their buddy do some brake work on their car for a pack of beer, but had to come in a week later because the car had a loud clunk when braking and was really hard to stop. This customer had just installed a new oil pan gasket and done an oil change at a quick fix repair shop that had not sealed the oil pan gasket properly or filled the engine up with the right amount of oil, which caused this mechanical Caesar salad. It definitely adds that extra earthy, ethereal smell to your driver's cab. Customer states, nickel knackle knuckle sound from engine. This customer came in with some starting issues, saying that he does all regular maintenance by himself. This customer came in with a dislocated CV axle after he hit a piece of metal junk that had fallen off the car in front of him on the highway. And the owner of this Lexus came in saying that they smell burnt wood whenever they drive on the highway. This Mercedes G-Class was brought in by the owner as it had started to knock and rattle a lot at all speeds, and it turns out that they had a massive oil leak after the owner had hit some orange safety railing. This Nissan Altima came in because it had a bit of a leak after the customer had hit a rock on the road and tried fixing the damage by himself. The owner of this car had tried installing a new fuel relay to cut his gas mileage in half, but had just made a mess in the fuse box and now has double the gas mileage instead. Customer states, tire leak after they hit like a small lug nut or something on the road. Wants to make sure it's not too expensive of a job before approving repairs. And this customer came in on a tow truck after the owner had fixed a flat on the highway, but had the engine shut down on him just a few miles down the road because he had dropped a scissor jack into the engine bay, which caused quite the carnage. The owner of this car had installed a home-built exhaust system using some pipes and random parts they found in their garage. but was in a week later because they had installed it a bit too close to the fuel tank, which had caused a leak. Here's a quick tip for quick, easy, but sometimes expensive car repair. Just pretend any issues you have don't exist. Customerstates, drove past a construction site and think I must have hit a nail or something. Could you check it out? And this car came in with its engine, transmission, and drivetrain all messed up after the customer had just done an oil change on it, but not filled it with the right amount of engine oil, and then immediately after towed it behind their RV, but left it in second gear. And this customer came in right on time to have their timing belt replaced. This car rolled in with no oil and some massive engine and undercarriage damage after the customer had hit a sloped Jersey barrier on the highway while they were looking down on their phone. And this mechanic just wanted to share a tip on how to quickly get weather strippings out from behind the trim panels without having to use your finger. Just take a drill with a 7mm on it and let it rip. The owner of this car came in complaining about a heavy steering wheel after he had another shop install a new servo pump that he had purchased from Temu, but the other shop had been quite rough when installing it, which caused it to leak and made the steering heavy. And this customer was in for some new brake pads when the mechanic discovered that the brake calipers were held on by a piece of rope. Customer states, needed new wipers, but I fixed it myself. The owner of this Volkswagen Tharu rolled into the shop because they had some major brake issues after they drove down Waipio Valley Road on Hawaii after visiting the lookout point. That road is famous for being extremely steep, reaching a 45% grade at a few spots. This customer's car rolled in because it idled really badly, and this is what the mechanic found. When your car looks like this and the mechanic is telling you to fix it as soon as you can, but you decide not to, it's fair to say that you're a bit cuckoo. The owner of this car had gone through 4 new car batteries in less than 3 months and couldn't for the life in him figure out what the problem was. He said that he installed a new sound system 6 months ago, but that it should be totally fine since he's done it many times before. The owner of this truck was out hunting in a nearby forest and got stuck on a trail and tried flooring it to get loose. But it didn't go so well. And this is what could happen if you accidentally drop stuff in the cigarette lighter that shouldn't be there while at the same time not having the correct fuses installed in your car. And this customer had money shifted his car so hard that he joined the clutch and transmission in a holy matrimony that would last forever. And this customer came in with a wobbly steering wheel after they had installed some new sportier lug nuts, but apparently picked the wrong size. And this customer urgently came into the shop as he thought his car was about to catch on fire after he noticed smoke coming out of the engine bay. The mechanics found the issue to be caused by a really bad wiring job. And this car came in with some brake issues after the customer had some work done at a different shop. Turns out that the customer hadn't replaced the rotors since the car was new, a couple caliper bolts were mysteriously missing, and the car had quite the oil leak because of a broken brake line. This customer's BMW was in because it had a clapping sound during idle, and this is what the mechanics found. This customer's Dodge Ram 1500 came in because it had quite the oil leak and knock after they had let their friend install a new exhaust manifold gasket for them the weekend prior. This car came in because it needed a new battery after the customer had installed a mobile radio system all by himself. Customer came in saying that their car has had issues starting ever since they borrowed it to their grandson who went to see his girlfriend who apparently lives down in Arizona. The owner of this car had been into the shop 6 months prior because of an oil leak, and had been recommended by the mechanic to install a new valve cover gasket, but the customer declined and instead had their friend fix it with some silicone, but was now in again as the fix wasn't fixing. This customer came in saying that they were speeding to get to work on time when they suddenly heard a loud pop and the engine started sounding strange. Turns out that the customer needed a new expansion tank. This customer came in because their car had started to run really badly after they had their friend help them install a used cylinder head, and this is what the mechanics found. The owner of this car had apparently rebuilt his engine by himself and came in to see if everything looked good to the mechanic. When your car starts making its own triple shot, tall, half-calf, salted caramel cappuccino latte, you know you're in trouble. And this customer apparently had his own little mini garden in the trunk. This Mitsubishi was in because it had started to run really rough, but when the customer was asked when he last had an oil change, he just went, "Oh, I have a guy that does it for me every year for like $40 or something. I just bring him the oil and then he does it." Why do you ask? And this customer rolled in with his brake rotors all messed up, as he had heard a loud thump sound right after he had slammed the brakes to avoid hitting a DoorDash scooter that made a sudden left turn in front of him. Yummy. This customer rolled in with their convertible, saying that one of the windows has started to roll down on its own, after they recently replaced a window control module. When your engine fan ends up looking like this, you probably floored it a bit too hard. The owner of this GMC Yukon had recently done an alignment at a local tire shop, which he paid over $300 for, but said that his steering wheel still isn't aligned. This GMC Sierra came in with a starting issue and glitchy infotainment system. The mechanic discovered that water had gotten into the cab and soaked a couple wiring harnesses on the floor. When asked about the mysterious holes in the truck's body, the customer just went, "I ain't seen nothing and I ain't heard nothing, okay?" Customer states that he just installed new brake calipers last year and is 100% sure that they cannot be the reason why his brakes work so bad. And this, folks, is why you should be extra careful letting quick fix repair shops work on your car. This customer rolled in saying that his car has started running rough and knocks a lot, after another shop had done a valve spring replacement not too long ago. The mechanic didn't have to look for long to find out that the customer needs a new head gasket amongst a few other things. And this customer complained about a nasty smell in the driver's cab and wanted the mechanic to change the cabin air filter and also have a proper look and make sure nothing had gotten stuck in the air vents. This customer rolled in because they had a strange smell inside the driver's cab and the car was louder than normal during acceleration. Turns out that another shop had repaired a leaky exhaust for them in a pretty creative way. The owner of this semi-truck came in with one of his tires looking like this. Apparently, he had parked at a local gas station for the night and gone in to buy some snacks for the evening, when he got into an argument with the owner and woke up to this the next morning. And this car was in for a tire rotation when the mechanic noticed that it had a long-haired PPF. And this customer came in saying, "No matter how much washer fluid I put in this thing, it's always gone the next day. Also, I've been getting a knocking sound the past few days. Please advise." Customer states, truck has major fuel leak. The mechanics discovered that someone had tried running a cable for the trailer hitch by stapling it to the undercarriage. And this customer had to come in because their truck wouldn't start anymore after they had gone mud racing with it and accidentally ended up getting stuck in a deep puddle. This gas station mechanic told his intern to go wash a customer's car before they would come pick it up, but the intern wasn't able to get the car out of drive, so he smashed into the brushes. Thankfully, the station's insurance covered all the damages. And this truck was in for some new brake pads when the mechanic discovered this. And this customer rolled in with some engine issues. Take a wild guess what it might be. Customer came in complaining about their car leaning heavily to one side after they did some suspension work on it by themselves. Customer states, battery voltage is low and customer thinks that it's not charging as it should. The mechanics found the generator looking like this. This customer's Dodge was in for an engine replacement when the mechanics noticed that the shop's intern had a little mishap happen when they were helping to unload the engine from the delivery van. The owner of this car came in complaining about having heard a loud crack during hard acceleration and that the car barely accelerates since. And this car apparently makes its very own fresh orange juice. And when you live in the Rust Belt, don't expect your truck to last too long. And this customer had poured a cocktail of oil additives into their engine to improve fuel consumption and get rid of a knocking sound. But now says that it runs worse than ever and wanted the mechanics to have a look. And the owner of this car had tried replacing brake pads on it for the first time but couldn't figure it out, so he had driven it to the shop, and this is the damage that his little trip caused.